Ready? Here we go. Well, welcome everybody to our episode 000 of, I think we might call it either one of a kind conversations or custom conversations or something along those lines. And hopefully maybe you guys will help us pick it out. But we're just excited to have some high school students with us and some college students with us. And so why don't we do like a real quick introduction, and then we will kind of get on our way. How's that sound? So we will start with, my screen shows in my top left, Ashlyn. So why don't you go ahead and kick us off?
Okay, I'm Ashlyn, and I'm a senior at the Mount Pleasant campus, and I go to Wando.
Wow, awesome. Daniel.
I'm Daniel. I am a senior at the Mount Pleasant campus, and I go to Wando.
Grace.
My name is Grace, and I go to SCU, and I'm studying ministerial leadership.
Awesome. Conlon.
My name is Conlon. I go to the Mount Pleasant campus, and I go to Oceanside.
Johnny.
What's up, guys? My name is Johnny. I am also a student at Southeastern University Seacoast, and I am studying digital media and design.
Awesome. Paige.
I'm Paige. I'm from the Irmo campus, and I'm a senior at River Bluff High School.
We got seniors and college students, and we have Pastor Josh Ray from Somerville, who is going to help host us here. You know what? How are you guys managing? What's the biggest thing that you've been struggling with during this time, this quarantine time, this time of even cancellations of a lot of things? What's the biggest thing? Little popcorn, you can jump in. And...
The empty space. The empty space in the schedule that we have. It's insane how much dead time we have.
Who else?
I think I'm mainly dealing with a lot of disappointment. As a senior, the past 13 years, I've been looking forward to my graduation. I got my cap and gown the other day, but as of right now, we don't have any set date for graduation, and we know it won't be any time during the summer because our venue canceled. So it's just hard dealing with that right now.
Yeah, that's true.
For me, I think it's been the lack of interaction, human interaction. It's finals week for us at SCU, and so it's kind of interesting having to write papers on things that you haven't really discussed in person, but you somehow have communicated online. And I'm a big verbal communicator, and so when that's not really there, it's really hard for me just to kind of be on the same page as everyone else, if that makes sense. And so the lack of human interaction has been really hard.
Become self-teachers now. So teach yourself.
It's true.
I think for me, I definitely have to agree with Paige. Just with all of the senior stuff we've been looking forward to all year, which has been definitely disappointing. And also I've been experiencing a lot of health issues. So that's not fun, but it's just a learning process.
We've been praying for you, girl. We've been praying for you. Sure. Well, it looks like we just got hijacked by somebody.
I'd say that I'm upset about just missing out on sports seasons, and then again, as what Ashlyn said, prom and stuff like that, the things I've been looking forward to this year. It's just it's hard to stay focused and positive about the whole situation.
Yeah. No, I agree. Who's this dude who just hijacked us?
Hey, is this the Brandon Lake This Is a Move choreographed Zoom Seacoast Church? This is TikTok Tim.
TikTok Tim. No, man, this isn't the Brandon Lake TikTok choreographed This Is a Move. No,
Are you positive? Because I got it in my inbox this afternoon. Brandon Lake. He's got the hair kind of like mine, except different.
No, but it is Seacoast, so that's a good thing. Well, we're going to be talking about disappointment tonight, TikTok Tim. So I don't know if this is the choreograph piece or not.
Disappointment is this students?
This is,
'Cause you
yeah.
look familiar to me.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, you look real familiar.
Thank you. You
Well,
don't look,
hey, well, I got you right here on the horn, big guy. You want to know how I deal with disappointment?
how do you deal with disappointment?
I like to drive my riding lawnmower through the car wash and stay on it while it's in the car wash because I like the way it feels and I like the way it makes my lawnmower look. And when I come out the back end of it, I'm a brand new man, and it's just like disappointment just gone. That's how I deal with it.
That's how you deal with disappointment. Well, I don't know if that's how everyone deals with disappointment, but I appreciate that TikTok, Tim.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us, man.
Well, hey, man, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to crash your YouTube party, but I hope my words of wisdom and encouragement help somebody out there tonight. And if anybody can help me figure out how to get to Brandon Lake's choreograph, I would greatly appreciate it because I feel real foolish right now. But
Okay.
thank you for your kindness.
All right. You're welcome. You're welcome.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Salutations.
All right. Yeah, absolutely.
Salutations.
Yep. Well, hey, I hope that made some of you laugh. You sure did make me laugh. But we are going to, you heard Paige talk about disappointment. You heard Daniel talk about disappointment. Conlon, what about you? What's some things that affecting you over this time?
Yeah, for me, it's a lot of what everyone else said. Just things getting canceled, and it kind of like I was just looking forward to a lot of the things to end off senior year, and literally all of it just gone. Which it makes me sad. And I feel like a lot of times with disappointment comes worry, just because like I'm just worried, like whenever I do a homework assignment and it just feels weird because it's online and I'm worrying about whether or not it's going to affect my grades and just a lot of worry coming from disappointment. So that's what I've been struggling with.
Yeah, that's really good. We're on YouTube Live, and so we've got students on the chat with us. And so if you're watching us live right now, why don't you even type in the chat? What are some things that you're dealing with during this time? What are some disappointments you're dealing with? And I want to share something pretty quick, and then we're just going to have some popcorn conversations. But the enemy uses the same strategy he used in the beginning when he showed up in the garden. Basically, it's this: get God's children to doubt God's trustworthiness and get God's children to trust something besides God. And I think a lot of times when you face disappointment, you begin to doubt. Like, doubt hits, and it's heavy, it's hard. And the enemy is dedicated to convincing us that God is either withholding good things or failing to protect us from the bad things. And so why don't we just have a little conversation right now around dealing with disappointment? We all experience it for different reasons or the other. But what are some things that cause disappointment?
This is actually something I think I've been pondering a little bit throughout the season, but I think I've heard a lot of conversations with people who are like, well, I'm trying to get into like this new routine and trying to like connect with the Lord throughout this season, but trying to get to a new routine. And I think that's something that has really struck me, why I think that we found so much disappointment in this season is because we've tried to fit God into a routine, and he was never meant to be placed into a routine. And I think that it's a lot easier to deal with disappointment and to walk through seasons of disappointment when it's not just something that you're checking off a box to read your Bible and to journal in the morning, but it's that constant communion that you're living with him. And it's through the highs and the lows that it's not part of your routine to spend time with God, but it's a joy that you get to live in constant communion and in friendship with him. And so I think for me in this season, I mean, I can choose to sit in the lows, and I can choose to ponder of, man, like, I'm just not getting my quiet time today. Or I can choose to, hey, like, God's not supposed to be part of my routine. And maybe it would be easier to walk through disappointment if I would actually welcome him into it. If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Who else? Well, Paige actually DM'd me on Instagram when we were doing a lot of Instagram lives. And she said, hey, next time you think about talking about something, I'm having lots of conversations with friends, and who are just dealing with disappointment. And so, Paige, just thank you for kind of bringing this to our attention and wanting to address it. I think it's a great topic, especially in this time. A great time to really talk about how we're dealing with it, what are things that cause it, and then what's God's word say about it. And I'll kind of say some things at the end, but what are some other things that lead and cause disappointment?
I feel like, at least for me, I've been doing a lot of prayer, and I feel like words, at least that were spoken over in my life and I found really personally impactful, is the fact that, like, we put trust in our own plans. Like, I had my plan to graduate in June, and I had my plan to go to my senior prom, but like, that wasn't God's plan. And part of it is like, I have to be okay with that, in the sense that, like, yes, it sucks because, like, I don't get like this experience and stuff, but like, also I know that like God will have a bigger and better plan for my life. And like, it might mean that like I have minor things that maybe normal people, or like the class of 2019 or like the next class, will have, but like, it'll, in the long run, like, this experience will really like help me, and it'll shape me, and it's like all for his plan and for his purpose.
That's really good.
For me, one thing that, like Paige was saying, just about the fact that God has a plan. I realize when I'm disappointed the most, it's when I'm worried that God's plan isn't going to be as good as what I had in mind. I'm kind of putting this picture of what I think my future is going to look like. And then as soon as it doesn't line up with that, that's when I get disappointed, when really it's just me worrying about the future, worrying about God's not going to do it the way I wanted it, and he's not going to meet those expectations I have. And like I said, with everything getting canceled, that's when I find myself trusting him the least and the most disappointed. So it kind of goes hand in hand.
Good. It's good.
Yeah, I definitely think that when we're thrown off our own balance and what we expect is definitely where I experience disappointment. And when I'm disappointed, I think it's because I'm disappointed in God and something that he did, but really it's me being disappointed in my own plan that fell short, because it's not really mine in the end, that I need to be focused on what he has, and that we're always part of this bigger picture that he has, and we don't see it for a reason. And it's just getting adjusted to that and knowing that what we're going through right now is so much bigger than what we could ever think of, but there's just so much more he has for us. And it's just laying down our disappointments, our plans, and giving it all to him and letting him take the reign.
It's really freeing to I think that's kind of how God designed it, to have the future set as an unknown. We don't have to worry about the future. That's just for God to take care of, and we can just sit back and trust, which is a lot harder done than a lot easier said than done. But I think that is a blessing, and God's trying to bless us by not giving us a clear future of what he has for us.
Yeah. No, I was going to use this verse at the end. There's a couple of verses I wanted to share, but I was going to use this one at the very end. But you just said it about trust in Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. I'm not sure if many people have it memorized, but it's one that I memorized really early, which was trust in the Lord with all of your heart and lean not on your own understanding, but in all of your ways acknowledge him and he'll make your path straight. And that is like you said, it's sometimes a harder, easier said than done verse, but trust in the Lord with all of our heart, right? And a lot of times we lean on our own understanding, and that's what gets us in trouble for sure. And it creates disappointment. I wonder if the dog behind you, Ashlyn, experiences disappointment.
He's going to, when all of this stuff goes back to normal. He will not leave my mom alone.
So he's just laying there. Get a screenshot of that bad boy.
Chilling out.
Well, what else? I've got some ideas of how to deal with disappointment, but before we get into that, what are some other things that cause disappointment or you may be wrestling with? I know hearing the high school students, especially seniors, I don't think in the history I may have to do some research or studying, but I don't think in the history of my understanding that we've seen a graduating class not have this kind of experience. That's just, it's weird. I mean, on one end, it's kind of like no one else is going to experience what you guys are experiencing, but the other end, you're missing out on milestones. You're missing out on like things you look forward to. And how are you able to deal with that?
I think it's all just part of opening your mind and seeing that God chose us for a reason, and that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. And that people are going to remember our class for years because of what we went through. And it's kind of puts me in check of really like, I want to look back and see that I grew so much and God did so much during this time. Not that I was really sad about all these things I missed out on, and that even though like God knows that we would have really enjoyed doing those things, but he had something so much better for us. And so it's just exciting now at this point to see what he's going to do and what he's done already. And it's hard to keep that up. Like, it's not something that's easy to do and just say, oh, I'm excited. Like, you still experience disappointment, but I think it's just putting yourself in check and realizing that God chose this senior class for a reason.
Absolutely. Well, I got some thoughts, and let's have some conversation around these thoughts. How to deal with disappointment. You ready? 3 thoughts. Mourn. It's okay to mourn. It's okay to have honest feelings about it, but then release your disappointment to God. Mourn, and then release your disappointment to God. Be honest with God about how you're feeling. He already knows, right? He already knows, and denial does not remove disappointment. So acknowledge it. Talk about it. Acknowledge your feelings about the situation that you're disappointed in. The truth is we all have experienced disappointment or experiencing disappointment, or we will experience disappointment, you know? And so when we're experiencing some disappointment now, it's normal. It's a natural reaction to mourn. It's a natural reaction to be sad. It's natural to kind of have your first reaction be of that negative bend. But again, mourn, release your disappointment and give it to God. Have a moment where you feel sad about the situation, and pick yourself up and keep moving, right? Don't run from it, face it and release it. What are your thoughts around that first one on how to deal with it?
I have a really good analogy that just really popped into my head after you were talking. And I pictured like a cement truck, you know, those like big cement trucks that have the rolling tubes. Well, I imagined like the inside the cement truck, like all of the little rock gradients were like what I had planned for, you know, the summer graduation, all that stuff. Like, obviously I'm not going to graduate because I'm still in college, but just the things that I had planned in my head around those kind of those seasons. And then the cement truck slamming on brakes, and then all of that cement just like flying out of the front. And I'm trying to pick up those cement, like little rocks. I know it's weird, but like those little rocks, I'm trying to put them back into the cement truck. But what God's trying to do is like those cement rocks that I had planned, like God's trying to kind of reveal things to me in those little, you know, great grains or something. But what I found most like in this little season of quarantine, that it really hurts to pick up those like plans, because like those plans sometimes are selfish plans, and God's trying to reveal that to you, and that does not feel good when he's trying to reveal to you that you had these plans and he has, you know, different plans for you. And like you said, John, like it is disappointing from my perspective, and that disappointing can be discouraging. It can be really you know, you can start to doubt, you can start to question a lot of these things. But I've also found it being really I don't know what the word is, but revelational, I guess, revelation, like to realize like how close the Holy Spirit is in those moments where like you feel the most pain, but it's also super freeing to experience that. I don't know if that even made sense, but
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. You know, so acknowledge your feelings. It's okay to be sad, but don't stay in sad, right?
right.
So the second thought is
Can I say
1 thing to that?
one thing to that? I think so many times we, as Christians, we think that we have to be perfect. And I think that we have to be perfect in our own eyes. And we think that we have to be perfect in our own eyes. And we think that we have to be perfect in our own eyes. And we think that we have to be perfect in our own eyes. And we think that we have to be perfect in our own eyes. And we think that we have to be perfect in our own eyes. And we think that we have to be perfect in our own eyes. And we think that we have to be perfect in our own eyes. And we think that we have to be perfect in our own eyes. And we think that we have to be perfect in our own eyes. And we think that we have to be perfect in our own eyes. And we think that we have to be perfect in our own eyes. And we think that we have to be perfect in our own eyes. And we think that we have to be perfect in our own eyes. And we think that we have to be perfect in our own eyes. And we think that we have to be perfect in our own eyes. And we think that we have to be perfect in our own eyes. And we think that we have to be perfect in our own eyes. And we think that we have to be perfect in our own eyes. And we we as Christians think that we're not allowed to feel all the feelings because we feel like that's wrong. I think, and sometimes we over spiritualize it. Like, I trust in God, so I'm not supposed to feel sad. No, it's okay to feel sad. It's okay to feel disappointed. It's okay to kind of have that moment. I think that the tricky part is when we get stuck sort of in that spiral, that downward spiral, and you can kind of maybe tell that about yourself. I know I can for me. And so just acknowledging, like, it doesn't make you less spiritual if you're sad or disappointed. I think sometimes we glaze over that as if God didn't give us every emotion to deal with life and to deal with things. So sorry to interrupt.
No, it's good. It's good. I was just looking at the chat to see. Caden Worley said, I deal with disappointment by remembering that God has a plan and knowing that he already knows the future and that it's in his hands. Come on, release that. That's awesome. All right. The second thing is evaluate and adjust your expectations. When I asked what causes disappointment, one of my thoughts was comparison causes disappointment because we can't be like what we see or want to, whatever, what's in front of us. But then unmet expectations creates disappointment. So evaluate and adjust your expectations. This is a time to examine where and in whom we place our trust. I want to say it again. It's a time where we examine where we put our trust and our hope and in whom we place our trust and our hope. Especially in times like this, where it feels like everything has just been canceled. And, we had our trust and hope and maybe some other different things. So granted, I'm not saying that all was not about God, but now is a time when we're faced with some pretty trying times to examine where and who we put our hope in and what we put our hope in. Misplaced hope always leads to disappointment, and so it's natural and normal to want things, but the issue arises when we begin to believe our happiness is based on achievement and achieving those things, or being the person or having a thing or that kind of thing. And when it doesn't happen, unmet expectations creates disappointment. So what happens when you lose something? What happens when you lose a job? What happens when you lose a graduation, when you lose a friend or relationship? Where do you turn and to whom do you turn? Learn to place your hope solely in God. Solely in God. That truly is the most secure place for you to be. And I think sometimes we maybe need moments where it's just you and God. It's not you, Pastor John, and God. It's not you, your teacher, and God. It's even not you, your parent, and God. It's you and God. And that's where you work on that relationship and you start to grow your roots deep into his word. Because when those shaking times come and those disappointments come, it's just you and God. And what do you do when it's just you and God? And how do you react when it's just you and God? So I think in this time, it's really teaching me, and I think it's teaching Kelly too, to really have your foundation and your hope be in the Lord above anything else. And that, what do you guys think about that? And we got one more point, and then we'll let everybody go, and we'll look at the chats a little bit. But what do you think about that piece? Evaluate and adjust your expectations.
I definitely agree with that. Like if I'm being frank, like I've had a lot of very angry, like emotional prayers to God, and like mainly what I've gotten back is, would you be okay if you did not have these events or what you were promised? Like, would you still believe and love me and like still put your hope and faith in me? And like that was definitely a very big moment where like we're not promised these events by God, and like we're promised them by culture and by society, but we're not called to live in that culture and society. So like for me, it's been a really big part of my faith where it's like I have to be okay like not being part of culture and society and being part of these promises, because I'm called to live above culture.
Good. you just mentioned promises, Paige, and something that I think that the Lord has been teaching me a lot in this season is you think of like the promise of God, and I'm sure that y'all heard this on Seasons by Hillsong, and it goes to talk about like the seed that was planted in Bethlehem became Calvary's sequoia, right? And like you think of like you reap what you sow. And the seeds that you're sowing is going to bring about a harvest. And I just want to encourage like the 4 of you seniors who are on here of like the seeds that you're sowing in the season of like truly trusting God is going to reap a harvest on the other side. And I think that it's in the season of you truly trusting him and surrendering your plans. And I mean, I think it's a great thing that you're saying, God, why? You know, and like going to God in your anger because he wants you to go to him in your anger and in your frustrations. But I think it's knowing that the seeds of trust that you're planting, that you're sowing, it's like when you plant that seed, you have to believe that it's going to grow. It's more than just planting it and leaving it. It's planting it and having faith that, hey, God, you're going to take this seed and it's going to grow into something that only you can flourish it into be, you know? And so I'm so encouraged by, I mean, all of you just for showing up and for just like understanding and trusting God in this season, that even though it hasn't gone your way, and even though it's been discouraging and it's been disappointing, that you're still showing up and you're still believing God for who he is and that he'll do what only he can do. And so I'm just so encouraged by you guys. Just wanted to say that too.
That's good, Grace, because that moves us right into point 3. Come on.
Can I say one thing? Hey, I just want you to know that if you guys can grasp some of these things now at your age, your parents, including our age and anybody older, like we're having to relearn some of these things. And so what a gift it is for you to have this sort of, I mean, if you can view it like that, it's a gift to be able to have this season of realignment and like stripping down to, all right, what do I really think? What do I really believe? Is it just me and God? If everything went away, am I okay? And what a gift it is to have that at your age, because there are your parents and people in every stage. If they don't have that kind of foundation, they're rattled in a different way. So moving on to point 3. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's good. Point 3, and then we'll close it out. Really, it's a challenge to keep moving, get moving. Sulking is not productive. Moping around is not productive. Regret is not productive. They can actually be harmful. And so sometimes the best way to get moving is to look beyond yourself. Serving, missions. And I know in this time here, looking beyond yourself is going to have to look a little creative, right? But there's ways to look beyond ourselves versus look inward. We can still look outward. Giving of your time, reach beyond yourself and help somebody in need, because there are a lot of needs around us, and so that helps us get past and overcome disappointment, is when we can actually be an answer for somebody. The hope is Christ, and we can be his hands and feet extended. And so this can also be a time to try something new, try something else, go in a different direction, or maybe approaching things in a new way. God is a God of second chances, but here's the thing: we need to be people of second choices. He's a God of second chances, but if you continually do the same thing, you're going to continually get the same results, right? And so we need to be people of second choices, better second choices. And so we all face disappointment. We were never promised everything we wanted, and we were never promised an easy life. We definitely live in a broken world, and this is what I love about some of these scriptures I'm going to read here in Psalm 34:17. It says this: "The Lord hears his people when they call to him for help. He rescues them from all their troubles. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted. He rescues those whose spirits are crushed. The righteous person faces many troubles, but the Lord comes to the rescue each time." I just love that. I love it. He's close to the brokenhearted, but he comes to the rescue every time. So however, we can rest assured that even though you don't get what you want, and you don't necessarily get what you wanted, God is with you and he will never forsake you. I'm going to leave us with this verse, and then we can kind of have some closing thoughts. "And we know that all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose." And so God works all things to the good of those who love him. And so what are some closing thoughts around that last thought about get moving? So we how to overcome disappointment is acknowledge it. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to mourn. It's okay to be, upset. But don't live there and stay there. Have a moment and then keep moving. Adjust your expectations, right? And then keep moving. Final thoughts. What do you guys think?
Like I feel like the whole entire message I just kept hearing like it was kind of just a summary of like overall to like get over this disappointment is to kind of just change your perspective and look at it as more of an opportunity. Like in my small group, we always our leaders always stress like the importance of reading the Bibles, and like as teenagers, a lot of us make up excuses as, oh, we don't have time, I'm too busy with school, I'm too busy with sports. And this is like a really perfect time. It's disappointing that all those things are getting canceled, but I almost feel like it's God's way of being like, hey, I'm done with the excuses. I've literally cleared your schedule. Like, I want to form a relationship with you. So, like, kind of taking it not as a disappointment, but maybe just changing that perspective and looking at it as like an opportunity.
That's good. That's good. I had a thought that disappointments were not meant to destroy you. They were meant to strengthen you.
Well, I feel like right now, my character is really, and for everybody, like this is really a time of like character reveal for God too, or for God through you. And it's a really good time to see like how am I responding to things, and how do I want to change who I am and how I responded to this, like how in the future would I want to change that. And that's really just about adjusting, like Paige was talking about earlier, what your foundation is on. Like if this were to happen again, I was to have something taken away from me again, I would want my foundation to be more set on Christ so that I wasn't as shaken next time. So it's a really good time to push forward in the fact that now we can really see who we are, and we don't have all these distractions around us. We can see who we are, like in the core of us, and go from there with God, and just come to Him with what we want Him to change in us.
That's good. That's really good. Final thoughts? I know it's late. You guys need to get to bed and get up early for something tomorrow. I know it. I know it.
I was just thinking about like what Colin said. It reminded me of a verse in Romans. It's Romans 5. It starts at 3. It's like I don't have it in front of me, but it's like rejoice in your sufferings, because suffering produces perseverance, character, and character hope. So like I've been reading that a lot recently, because we're all going through stuff, and I think it's a really good verse to be like, in the end of this, we'll come out stronger if you allow it, and that'll really like help us in the end. And if something like this happens before, and I would just encourage people that like right now is a very unique trial, that like we're all going through it together, but later in life you might not be going through a trial with people. So I would really encourage you to like get in the word and like to build up those tools to fight trials and to fight disappointment, while you have a whole community of people, a whole globe literally of people that are going through similar things.
Really good.
That was good.
And I think that ultimately the best way to fight is to armor up. And so you look at Ephesians 6 and the armor of God that it clearly lays out. And I think it's putting on the full armor and knowing that even the fiery darts of the enemy that's coming at you, that your shield of faith is really what distinguishes those. And so I think it's building your character, but it's also walking through it with like your faith as well.
Okay, well, I hope that this time was helpful to those of you watching, whether it's live or you just clicked through and you wanted to see what we were talking about, how to deal with disappointment. I just want to thank every one of you for being a part and kind of sharing some raw and real moments. And episode 000 is in the bag. Come on, for many more of these custom conversations. So We're going to close it out as we should in prayer, but I would love to ask Paige, would you pray for us? This was kind of your heart's desire.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. Dear Lord, thank you for this amazing group of people. Thank you for this amazing group of students. I just encourage that through these past next weeks that they really look at this into an opportunity to get into your word and to really get to know you. That finally their schedules have been made clear, that they are able to really put aside time to be with you, that their distractions have been removed, that the culture has been removed that surrounds them. But I also pray that you give them encouragement through this hard time. I pray prayers of protection over all of them during this scary time. I pray that they really trust on you to cast away their anxieties for this unprecedented time. And most of all, I pray that this pandemic makes them stronger in the end. And all this I pray in Jesus' name, amen.
And amen, amen. Hey, love you guys, and we'll see you on YouTube in a week or so. All right. Thanks, everybody.